All right, I think we're live. Let's take this screen down. All right. It's Friday, and the new tradition has been born. You know what that means? This is the Curated Media Channel. We got Pat, JB, and RC in the studio to give you your weekend preview. Guys, how are we doing? We had a good week?
Yes.
Yes. One word. Pat,
Yeah,
decent?
sure.
We're in the Northeast.
We survived.
We're fighting some snow today, which is really soul crushing to have some snow right before Halloween. That's
Yeah. I
really
think the
not.
last year it was like this was 2011 when it snowed on Halloween, like 2 feet.
Yes, I do. I vaguely remember that. That's it's no fun, but all the more reason to bundle up inside and get yourself some good entertainment, especially since possibly the most TV friendly day of the entire year is probably going to be on Tuesday, when everybody is going to be glued to election coverage. So that's something to counter program maybe this weekend, so you're not too wired.
Is that Tuesday?
Yep.
Wow.
Incredible.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they haven't been bombarding us enough. So anyways, as per usual, we have 6 picks of sort of newer stuff streaming or available to you via various programs through the internet that you can access. We have a couple picks from Turner Classic Movies because we like to sort of do a couple throwback picks, and then we each have a wild card for the weekend. So I'm going to go to Pat first because he's got a couple cool things lined up on his picks for this week. So Pat, what's your first pick?
Yeah, so my first pick this week is a film called Sound of Metal, and it's playing normally around this time of year. The IFF Boston, the Independent Film Festival of Boston, runs a fall, whose program is normally in the spring. They run a fall program that's wonderful. You get to see some of the films that open at places like Telluride and TIFF before they open in regular theaters. So normally they would be doing that at the Brattle around this time. Obviously they can't, but they physically, but they've gone virtual. So this film is available. We'll include a link in the description to the IFF Boston, and there are some other great films. Last night I saw Minari, which is an A24 film that premiered at Sundance to rave reviews, and it was wonderful. It was just a delightful film. So this one I don't think is necessarily in the delightful category. It's stars Riz Ahmed as a noise metal drummer. I'm not even 100% sure what noise metal sounds like, but I think I'm going to find out. And who gradually loses his hearing because he is playing, noise metal. And so he has to navigate that. It kind of reminds me of The Writer, where the main character has to navigate this part of their life that sort of is very important to them and defines who they are. And then what happens when they, lose some or a part of that. So I haven't seen the film, but I'm really excited. And that premieres it will be available to rent from 10 a.m. tomorrow, 10/31, until 10 a.m. on 11/2 Eastern. And it's available in New England. I'm hopeful that includes the great state of New York, but I guess we'll find out. But yeah, excited to see another new film and support a great film festival.
Yeah, and again, we'll attach a link in the video description if you want to get in on something kind of cool and exclusive like the IFF. JB?
Imagine that, going to a movie theater. Interesting concept. What's my first one?
Your first one?
Yeah.
Oh, you need me
Just
to
remind me what order, because
I think you chose the series coming back on Disney Plus.
Oh, Mandalorian.
Yes.
Not a shock that I'm picking that. It had a great debut to rave reviews, introduced us to Baby Yoda. Everybody wants to see what's going to happen with Baby Yoda now more than the Mandalorian himself. He's sort of like literally the riding shotgun to Baby Yoda at this point, I think. And the first season, I think, really, in my view, Pat, I know you're a big Disney guy. In my view, the series started kind of slow, but then I think the last couple episodes really picked up the pace, introduced a lot of different characters, and really kind of shows that the Mandalorian a little bit more about who he is as a person, who he was in his prior life. But there's a lot of mystery still yet with him, and we still don't know what Baby Yoda is all about yet. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they develop this next season. The Gina Carano character, there's rumors that she's going to get a spinoff. Other characters are going to be introduced, so I'm anxious to see what they're doing this season with it. and it's on Disney Plus. I think it premieres this weekend.
Yeah, I
right?
think the first episode, right? They go week by week with that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That last year.
I tapped out on that about midway through, but maybe I'll give it a shot, the back half of it, because again, it wasn't that I didn't like it, but again, the pacing I thought was a little slow, and I like the self-contained units that each episode sort of.
Well, it's got
had.
very much a Western feel
Yes.
to it, you know, almost a Clint Eastwood type character, and almost like Outlaw Josie Wales is Mandalorian's this, you know, solo act, and all of a sudden he gets this responsibility for this creature that, you know, at first I think he could take it or leave it, and then he realizes everybody else wants to do harm to this thing, so he immediately feels like, okay, as a Mandalorian, it's my responsibility to basically be there for the underdog.
Right.
So I've said I thought the first season was very good. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, and the production value is like good,
super high.
stupid good.
Yeah.
I ended up sort of zagging from both of you, which is, I think, kind of fair in terms of different types of programming. I chose 2 documentaries for my picks. The first of which is a docu-series, and I'm not exactly sure how it's being released, but it's called City So Real. It's going to premiere on National Geographic this evening, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry. Last night it premiered on National Geographic, and it's going to be making its way to Hulu over the weekend. It's a 5-part docu-series directed by Steve James, who most famously directed Hoop Dreams, which I think is still probably the best sports documentary, even though we've had an onslaught of those in recent years. And it looks at the city of Chicago as 21 candidates try to run for mayor. So originally it was 4 parts. I believe it debuted at Sundance last year. And as always, Steve James is critical darling, so everybody loved it. But I guess they added a updated chapter in 2020 as COVID has hit. So they have basically the last 4 years in the city of Chicago dealing with everything from social upheaval to problems with violence to the mayoral campaign. And he's really good at doing what he does, which is just shooting a lot of footage, being a fly on the wall, and then finding a really good narrative arc. So I'm going to give that a shot. So take a look at that. That's called City So Real. It should be available on Hulu this weekend. Not sure if all episodes are dropping or just one. So check that out. Pat, pick number 2.
So my second pick is also a virtual cinema pick from the Brattle Theater, which is local to me here in Boston, and it's available until 11/5. So you've got a little bit more time to see this. But it's a film called Native Son from I believe it's 1950. And it's a film that was incredibly controversial at the time of its release. It's based on a novel of the same name that was published in 1940, and it's focused on sort of the film version 1951. It's focused on, you know, basically racial relations between African Americans and the police in that time, which is probably what drove a lot of the censorship, especially in the Deep South at that time, where it was very common for them to be censoring movies that had any kind of sort of positive content about African Americans. But it's a brand new restoration. They actually had to go to get a 35 millimeter print from Argentina, which is pretty wild that they had to literally go to another country to get a print of this film. And I think this is how I'm going to start my noir. It's a film noir also. It's sort of a different take on a film noir. So that's how I'm going to start my Noir Vember programming. And this version includes a special introduction from the czar of noir, Eddie Muller, and Jacqueline Stewart, who is another co-host on TCM. And actually I think she's now like one of the artistic directors of the Academy Museum. They recently announced. So some heavy hitters giving you some great context on this controversial, often censored film that I think you should go and check out.
Yeah, no, I saw they've teased this a couple times on TCM, this restoration. And it's always interesting when they are able to piece something back together, like they did with that Orson Welles movie a couple of years ago, which was really interesting to watch. So definitely check that out. The link is in the video description. Again, that's available until Thursday, 11/5. So get on that if you want to check it out. JB, pick number 2.
Is that Roadkill?
Roadkill.
I just saw this today in the paper. Another PBS Masterpiece program. It's going to air this Sunday. I think it's a limited series. It's going to star Hugh Laurie as a member of Parliament, and by all accounts, he's what they call a cad. sort of a character that you kind of love to hate, I guess. Womanizer, backstabber, God knows what else. Hugh Laurie, who's famous from the House series as well as the limited series Night Manager, where he played a really bad guy. And he was also on that series. Was it that HBO series where he was that sci-fi thing?
Oh yeah,
Avenue 5. Yeah.
whatever.
The
Yeah.
captain, whatever, and he was sort of sardonic throughout.
And of course, he was Veep. Veep. He was.
Oh,
really
that's right. And he had
Yeah.
a great standout role in Veep. Right. So, very good actor. I'm sure he'll play this very well. PBS Masterpiece is probably one of my, as an anthology program, is probably the best that is out there, because it seems show after show they just hit it out of the park. Right casting, terrific production value. So I don't know any more about it than that, and that's pretty much enough for me. Political drama with Hugh Laurie, and I'm sure there'll be a good cast supporting it. So PBS, I think I'm not sure whether it's going to be 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. It all depends, I guess, on where you are and whatever, but I'm looking forward to seeing it.
And you can probably access it through the PBS Masterpiece app if you are subscribed.
Right. And typically they do it one episode at a time, so you can't binge watch it unless you wait till the end, I guess.
Okay. All right. So my final pick is another documentary. This is more of a elevated, stylized documentary. It's called Dick Johnson is Dead, which is by Kristen Johnson. The whole sort of concept of the movie is Kristen Johnson had a film a couple years ago called Camera Person that drew rave reviews. She's been a documentary cinematographer for a long, long time, basically her entire career. And she thought, as her second sort of directorial film, she wanted to explore some of these feelings that she had. Her father is getting older, and I guess has the beginning stages of dementia. And I guess she wanted to confront the fear of her father dying. So she had him sort of participate in this sort of performance art come documentary that basically she sets up all these scenarios and films him sort of dying in various ways. But
is this a comedy?
As you peel back the layers, I think there's a sort of a sweeter, more psychological, obviously, heart to the film. It premiered last year at Sundance, and people thought it was very good, but then it just sort of got dumped on Netflix. I texted Pat about it, that it was out, and I had no idea. So that's available to you on Netflix, and right now it holds an 89 for whatever that's worth on Metacritic. So definitely something a little bit different to check out on the documentary front. So I wanted you guys to comment on my TCM picks, because we like to do a TCM spotlight. Let's talk about a couple old films, and Pat did feature one in his picks for the week. But two notable ones I thought this weekend. First, JB, I have Saturday at 8 p.m. on The Essentials is Dr. Strangelove. What are your thoughts on that film?
Iconic, classic, some of the best actors of the day playing roles, some against type, some right up their alley, and the great Peter Sellers is incomparable. And the dialogue and the absurdity of it for the time was very controversial. Now we look back on it, it's relatively tame compared to what goes on in today's actual world of politics. But there's just the performances are just outstanding, and
George C. Scott
basically auditioning for Patton, which he would get 5-6 years later. Sterling Hayden, Boone Pickens.
Oh, yep, that's right. James Earl Jones is in it.
Very young James Earl Jones.
I mean, it's just unbelievably good.
Yes,
it really is.
And I don't know, Pat, if you have anything to add, but I think it's probably the best political satire film that I've ever seen.
I mean, Mr. President, we have to close the mineshaft gap. We cannot have a mineshaft gap with the Russians. So, it's great.
Incredible. There's no fighting in the war room. It's endlessly quotable.
Fighting in the war room.
By the incomparable Stanley Kubrick. So just meticulously made, layers and layers of funny stuff going on in that film, from the names of the characters to the arm of Dr. Strangelove. Just absolutely incredible. If you haven't seen the film,
now, Dimitri, there's no reason for that kind of language. Let's work together on this.
It's really incredible. As you can see, we're all sort of cracking up thinking about it. But again, Saturday night at 8 p.m. If you have a DVR, set it. If not, and you get TCM, go on the app, do yourself a favor, and watch this before Election Day. It'll at least give you something to smile about. Pick two, and I'm going to go to Pat to sort of give his thoughts on this, because I'm assuming that you've seen this, being sort of a buff on the sort of noir scene, is from 1945. Mildred Pierce. That's playing Sunday at 11:30, which is after Eddie Mueller's noir pick for the week, which he generally does at 10. So, Pat, give the folks a couple thoughts on Mildred Pierce.
Yeah, it's one of the interesting sort of female-centric noirs too, and that the central character, there's always, in the traditional noir construction, there's always a femme fatale, and then generally there's a man at the center of it. But Mildred Pierce is really stars with Joan Crawford and is really told from her perspective and deals with her, sort of navigating her own, like basically her own agency in her own life, and then dealing with a daughter that is less than understanding of the choices that she's made, and the sort of fallout of that. So it's actually been a few. I might revisit it. I have the Criterion Blu-ray, but I haven't actually watched it since I first saw it in theaters, probably a number of years ago now. So yeah, it's a great. I mean, it's up there for as one of the great noirs, and that's always with good reason. So
yeah, you described it perfectly. Her aunt, what is it? Aunt Blythe is her daughter, and just one of the most insufferable noir character of all time. Is sort of a weird spin on the femme fatale in this role, because you'll see if you watch the movie, and Joan Crawford absolutely knocks it out of the park. It's just an awesome dynamic tour de force by like a real big movie star, and directed by Michael Curtiz, who of course directed Casablanca as well. So definitely check that out. Again, Saturday at 11:30 on TCM or on the app afterwards, if you don't catch it there. All right, wild card picks. Let me see. Let's go to JB first, because I know he's watched a couple seasons of his.
Travels with My Father, which is a British show starring the big comedian over there, young guy in his 30s, Jack Whitehall.
Yep.
And his father, who's a much older father who got married late in life. So his mother is significantly younger than his father, and his father is probably in his mid-70s or so. And Jack decided a few years ago that he and his father had basically really very little in common. And even though he loves his father, and his father's been very supportive of him, he's a comedian and does a lot of, humor that his father really can't relate to. His father's more in the Benny Hill sort of, class, Peter Sellers, classic British comedians, that type of thing. His father's a very sort of old line Englishman, still dresses, travels with a big wardrobe, but has some unusual quirks, including his love of this basically almost like a Jerry Mahoney type puppet that he brings along with him and treats him like a son, which is real son. Jack can't understand what the hell's going on with that. His mother's kind of like, yeah, I think these trips are great. And so he decides that he wants to plan this first adventure without telling his father what they're doing. So his father, of course, brings all of this extensive stuff, thinking they're going on you're going to have proper meals, and they get taken to various locales where his father's completely uncomfortable. So the first season basically is Jack's trip. Second season is his father's sort of payback and say, okay, now you're going to do some of the things I want to do, which is insufferable tours of certain World War II battlegrounds and a lot of history and stuff. And I think 3, which I haven't seen, but it's been previewed, as some kind of trip to like the Middle East or something, and Northern Africa. So, as Ryan knows, my father passed away actually 3 years ago, almost, I think it's to the day. And my father was not like Jack Whitehall's father, but very set in his ways. And it's been an interesting thing when we used to travel with him. It's when you get generational things and bring them together and you force this sort of cooperative type thing, you don't really have, I'm sure they didn't have to do a lot of retakes. I'm sure this humor that we see on the screen is not like enhanced reality. I believe this is what was actually, after a while though, you get to know both of the characters. So it becomes more like a situational comedy as opposed to this sort of semi-reality show. And the traveling is terrific, where they go and such real characters that they meet along the way, that you believe that if you would take a camera on your normal vacation trip, these are the kinds of people you would actually run into. And so they're not performing for the camera. It's like they're believable characters, whether it's somebody who's teaching them the sort of the voodoo arts, or somebody's taking them on a trip, or the dancing lessons, or they dress up in drag. I mean, it's all sorts of weird stuff, but it's really funny.
Yeah, the travel logs. Netflix seems to have a lot of those. But I know you've been lauding this one for.
I think that
years.
one of those things was, Pat. I think they never thought there would be more than one season, and I think I believe they were hugely surprised by how much people related to this thing.
Yeah,
and I think that's why now we're on season 3.
Wow,
very good.
that's nice when that works out.
Yeah, right.
Patrick, what do you have?
So I couldn't let the day before Halloween go without recommending some sort of Halloween themed, semi-spooky movie. So I've got a double feature here: The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad from 1949, and The Nightmare Before Christmas from 1993. Both of which are available on Disney Plus. So I actually would only recommend the second half of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, which is the story of Sleepy Hollow, narrated and sung by one Bing Crosby, with some original, or Disney written music that is suitably creepy and fun for Bing Crosby. So always liked that. I always liked that portion of it as a great Halloween story. And then obviously The Nightmare Before Christmas is a stop motion musical that from the mind of Tim Burton, directed by, I'm blanking on the other fellow's name, Henry Selick, and is a great movie for the transition between Halloween and Christmas, since it's sort of about both. So yeah, I think you can bang both those out in about 20 or 2 hours and have yourself some family friendly spooky fun.
Very good. I like those picks. Something a little bit on the easy side. All right, my wild card pick is a show that is on Netflix. Holds a 72 on Metacritic. It's called Teenage Bounty Hunters. This is one of those ones that it recommended to me, and I was not in the mood to watch something serious, or I was deliberating over actually watching something serious, and I was like, all right, whatever, I'll throw this on. The premise is pretty much in the title. Two fraternal twin girls that live in the Georgia sort of suburbs of Atlanta, sort of upper crusty Christian conservative, are sort of have their dad's car one night, and they end up crashing it, and they just happen to run across a bounty hunter who they help capture this guy. They get the money to fix the car, and then they're like, all right, you know what? Why don't we do this as a secret double life? It's totally ridiculous in premise, but it is kind of interesting. Sort of a lot of sort of intersectional stuff going on between some of the bounty hunting and criminal justice, and just their conservative school, and them sort of coming into their late teen years and sort of trying to discover themselves. I thought both of the performances by the two leads was pretty good, and I believe their names are Maddie Phillips and Angelica Fellini. I don't know if it has any relation to the film director Fellini, but they're very good. They have great on-screen chemistry. They do some fun stuff, twin stuff, and they each sort of have their own separate identity. The show actually has 10 episodes, but was not renewed by Netflix, which is very surprising, because it was in the top 10 for most of the month that it was released back in August, and was in the top 25, I think, up until September. But for whatever reason, they didn't pick up the option. So while you might not get a season 2, maybe if you watch it, if we get enough people to watch it, maybe they'll bring it back for a second season. Again, it's very light fare. It's fun. The jokes don't always land, but again, I thought the acting was very charming, and the milieu was something I haven't really seen. That I don't watch a lot of shows set in the sort of suburban South. I don't know. It just seemed like an interesting take. So again, that's Teenage Bounty Hunters. Totally ridiculous, but kind of fun and light if you're looking for something as counter programming to some of the seriousness out there. So that is my wild card. And that is our second edition of the weekend preview. Great job, guys. I hope everybody will check out at least one of the things that we recommend this weekend. Again, links to most of them are in the video description, and anything that we said is linked will be down there for you guys to check out. And we hope you guys enjoy a spooky Halloween weekend, hopefully snow-free. And until we talk to you next, we will
see you in the movies.